Hey guys, welcome to this video. Thank you so much for tuning in and sharing this now moment with myself and with one another. For those of you who haven't seen these videos before, welcome and welcome back if you have. My intention is benevolence for all, in alignment with the highest levels of love light. And I'm using this new microphone to give it a try, thanks to my dear friend Kat. So thank you for this. And if I like it, I'm going to purchase one. So it's really nice because if you've watched my videos before, you might know that I have a little technical difficulty sometimes with the new microphone, but I'm gonna try to get this all to work out eventually. Quick energy update before I keep rambling on. I'm gonna call this a mushy day, and the reason is we've been having a lot of downloads from the sun. We're still in the energy of the full moon as of right now as I post this. And I say that because I feel that when there is a full moon or a new moon, because of the alignments of the earth and because of the interaction with the sun and the other planets, it stimulates within us emotions. It can stimulate within us things come up, we remember things, we forget things, and so on and so forth. And what's happening is we're being guided to really recognize, are we in the flow or are we fighting the flow? So the message that was coming through, and I'll use my personal example today, I had the day to kind of do what I needed to do, and I really wanted to get on and update my blog. And I've just pages that I haven't put on there yet. And I started to type and it just wasn't working out. And then I got up and I thought, well, I'm gonna go for a run, or a bike ride. And I didn't wanna do that either. And then I thought, so I was being guided. My guides were kind of telling me, get in the water, get on the earth, get outside, put away the electronics, write. And I was so jumbled because I wanted to do all of those things. So I had to really just relax into it and stop and ask my guides, myself, my higher self, what should I be doing right now that would really be, and the answer that came through is what feels good right now, which I know this. I talk about this all the time. But then I thought about my day and I thought, okay, this is what I need to get done. This is the time that I have allowed to me. I'm too mushy to think about any of the logical things that I have to get done. So maybe that will get better as the day goes on. Right now, I just want to write and create. And it was like ding, 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 ding. And I was able to do that while I sat outside and grounded and got in the sun. So I was multitasking in flow. And while that happened, a lizard came and jumped on my leg and hung out with me for a while, which was super cool. Cutest little guy. And all kinds of cool things just kind of happened synchronistically because I actually stopped the madness, the chaos, and went within to listen to what I was feeling. And the reason I was feeling frustration, which can come up during the full moon, which can come up during these certain phases of our ascension cycles. And it was almost like I needed to purge and let it all go, let go of the need to control how, when, why, how long I was gonna do things. And as soon as I recognized that, everything just kind of fell into place. So now I was guided to jump on, which I would usually have done a video this morning, but I was guided not to. And now I see why, because the message that's coming through was very relevant to what I was feeling to share with you guys. So that helped me to let go of the frustration and just to go, well, this makes sense. Thank you so much for sharing this with me. Once I did that, it didn't block the flow of the messages that were coming through. I couldn't get the messages straight. They were all jumbled because I was here, I was there, I was here, I was there. And I wasn't figuring out how to put all the puzzle pieces together. So the other message that keeps coming through is patience in the convergence. So really being patient with ourselves. If we're unable to dictate how and when we should be doing these things. Like, some of us work Monday through Friday, right? And then on the weekends, we have that time off. And that's when we can kind of somewhat dictate when and what we do. If you wake up and you have to go to work on Monday, and they're asking me to use this as an example, and it's a mushy Monday, and you can't quite get your ducks in a row, it's a good idea to be aware of that and to do what you can do to work with that. Meaning, do breath work on the way into work, perhaps. Have coffee instead of decaf tea if you need to get that little bit of energy going. Do some yoga, or jump on the trampoline instead of the relaxing, instead of watching TV, we'll say, scratch the relaxing, that typical habitual pattern. Sometimes that frustration is a sign to break out of the pattern that we're in, to try something different so that we can get back into flow. Then when you take a break from your commitment that you have in the 3D that you need to follow because of where you're currently at in your journey, in your job, in your whatever it might be, and go sit in the car and take a nap, breathe, maybe go home a little early if that's available for you, maybe even call in sick if that's available for you. So the other example they wanted me to use is there's a lot of people who have really jam-packed lives. They have birthday parties to go to and events that they feel that they need to be a part of because they've committed, or they feel like they have to commit because this person came to their birthday party. I could go on with all of the examples, as you guys know. What they're sharing with me is, don't do it all, because we are conduits, and our job is to conduit the energy and not to burn out, because we are essentially conduits for the energy going from the earth to the sun to the earth, the other planets, our brothers and sisters, our connection with our ancestors, all of the plants, the trees, and the animals. We are connected to all of that. And if we aren't taking care of ourselves, then we certainly aren't doing the bigger job and tasks that we came here to do. If that's something we feel that we came here to do, and that, obviously resonates with that individual. So what they're showing me is, don't do it all. It's okay to say no. So perhaps if you want to go to a birthday party, leave a little early. They'll understand. And if they don't, then that's on them. Be honest, be truthful. I'm just feeling exhausted. And somebody else might go, me too. I wasn't even going to throw the birthday party. And then you could share, well, you know what? I'm sure people would understand if you decided to change the date. It's okay, And there's lots of things. Don't worry about, one of the things is say, don't worry about disappointing other people, because we're starting to ask ourselves to take responsibility. And if we're all working and not putting our expectations on somebody else, we won't be disappointed. So it's again leading us back to us being the masters, being patient with ourselves and being patient with others, and not not feeling disappointment because others are perhaps fill in the blanks, because ultimately it's not about them, it's about us. And so if we are constantly feeling like we're disappointing other people, that might be something we need to address and look within about. The other message that's coming through is, so I'm hitting all the muggle stuff right now, all of the regular everyday messages about how to balance these energies. So if we're being guided, for example, to just sleep, but we are not listening to that. We know we could call into work, but we don't want to disappoint our boss, when ultimately it's not that big of a deal. And you guys know the examples. I see this all the time. You're not going to get fired if you do a great job and your boss would understand. There's some people, it's just ingrained in them, if that makes sense. I can't do this. I have to keep going. Well, I can't do this. They will go on without you. And it's not like we're being invited to call in sick every day. So we are being invited to be responsible for our actions, but also to recognize that we need to honor ourselves. So if it's available to us, I'm laughing right now. The woodpecker has joined us. The woodpecker came through for me this morning and is coming through again. And what this all comes back to is paying attention to our rhythms. If our body is saying sleep and we have to go to a birthday party because of our kids or whatever it might be, then compromise. Maybe leave the party a little early. Maybe see if your husband, spouse, loved one, partner, friend can take the kids. See if you can drop the kids off, go take a nap, and come back for half of the party. I'm using this as one example because what the guides are telling me is if we're not listening to what our internal clock, our rhythm is telling us, we're turning off our intuition. And I do meet with so many people, I've met with so many people in session work where they aren't listening to their intuition. And that leads me back to the beginning of this video where I said I was fighting the flow. So you'll feel exhausted if you're fighting that flow. But part of it is because we're activating, we're downloading, we're uploading, all of these things are going on. So it's even more important to listen to what our intuition is telling us. And this will come in the form of synchronicities, messages, dreams, conversations with other people, which is all synchronistic, and so on and so forth. So if we don't listen to our intuition and we ignore it, we're essentially telling the universe that we're listening. And that whole statement, if you don't lose it, you don't use it, you lose it. I've talked about this before. It's not a matter of losing it, although sometimes we do shut it down. It's like a muscle. The more we use it, the stronger it gets. So if we're consistently ignoring what our intuition is telling us, we're going to start to not know. Well, this question comes up a lot. Well, how do I know? Well, I never hear my guides. Well, I never hear my intuition. You do. You're just not listening. Or you aren't recognizing. That could be it too. And I did this for a really long time, and sometimes I still catch myself and I go, oh, okay, I was supposed to listen to that and I didn't. I ignored it. So this threw me into this, and because of me not paying attention, X, Y, and Z happened. Let's get back on track. Universe, I'm listening, So what they're sharing with me, so that kind of talks about the energies that are going on from a 3D standpoint. Be patient because everybody else is going through this too. Let go of putting our expectations on somebody else and how they should be behaving, because as we wake up and we start to see things from a broader perspective, we don't need other people to fall in line with what we expect them to do, because ultimately we see that it doesn't matter. And I say that with love because it's more about us. So we're being invited, if we're getting disappointed all the time, to reflect that back on us and ask ourselves, well, are we putting expectations on other people? And therefore that always sets up that room for us to feel disappointed. Once we pull ourselves out of that, it becomes a lot easier. We're not setting ourselves up for disappointment, so to speak, and it will reflect in others not being as disappointed in us. And on the other flip side of that, if they are, so what? So that kind of came through. If they are, that's on them, because ultimately we have to do what's important for us in order for us to hold our light. And the biggest message that came through the other day for me was, don't have the weight of the world. Let's not carry the weight of the world. Let's carry the light of the world. So again, it's that let's reflect back to the others what we want to see and be the change you want to see in the world. So if we're carrying the weight on our shoulders and we're the martyr, right? And we're like, oh, I can't do this because I'll look bad, or I can't do this because I don't want to let this person down, so therefore I have to carry all of these burdens. That's old. That's old energy. That's old, stagnant stuff that we're being invited to brush off and let go of and come from our hearts. And the more we love ourselves, the more we will then say, I love you, but no, I can't do that. But we could do this instead. And more options are then presented to us, and more opportunities to see things that weren't maybe able to be seen from before, from a lower perspective, or from a smaller, tighter, squeezed. The squeeze was on, so we weren't able, excuse my little guy, he's barking, but we weren't able to see from that broader perspective. Now all of a sudden we go, oh, well, we could try this instead and still make somebody else not feel like we don't love them. So I'm giving this, I'm gonna have to pause this just for a moment and see who's at my door. Okay, so we're covering those energies. What they're also sharing with me is cleanse. I'm laughing right now. I've got the frog. I had the lizard. I had the a wasp landed on me the other. It's just like it's almost like, I'm just sharing sidebar here. I used to do totem animal cards all the time, readings. If you guys have been watching my videos for a while, I tried in the beginning to start doing a weekly animal card reading. Obviously, I didn't continue with that, but I invite you guys to do that on your own because it's a lot of fun. And it was one of the tools I used, but now I just use the tools of what's showing up for me. And then I look up, or I ask my guides, what does that mean? And see what comes through. So that's another synchronistic form. So they're showing me too that purging and converging. So what's happening right now is oftentimes, so there's a couple different things. So I'm going to get out of the muggle. So I hope that kind of gave an idea. Drink lots of water. I'm not going to go into all that because you guys know what to do to take care of yourself. But we're being reminded to do that. So for example, and I'll end this particular section on this, if you are really lacking enough time, and this will lead me into this whole concept of time, it's about taking things in increments and not really just freaking out over all of the stuff, kind of like what I was going through this morning. Like, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this so that I can be prepared for tomorrow because I've got company coming in, and you know how it goes, right? The monkey mind. The idea is that if we can be present, we can then seek out, or those moments seek us out. So for example, I didn't think I was gonna have time to do a video because I had all of these other things going on. And also I was too mushy. But then certain things opened up for me. For example, you might have kids and you may not think you have time to just take a bath because you've been guided to cleanse, and all of a sudden your husband or loved one or partner or spouse or friend offers to take the kids for an hour and gives you that opportunity to do what it was you really wanted to do. Now they're asking me to show this as several examples. First of all, it was that intention I'd like to get in water. It was that thinking about it, and that's that instant manifestation that a lot of us are feeling. We're being invited and gifted these opportunities, and not to look, what is it? Look a gift horse in the mouth. I can't think of that saying. But basically, if you're being offered a gift, don't take it for granted. We're being invited to not go, no, I know that would be too much for you. Take it. It's, unless that's something that obviously we're taking all the time. It's not about service to self, it's about service to others, but it's higher self. So it is service to self first, so that we're in our hearts. Oops, I bumped the microphone, sorry. If that makes sense. It's not like me, right? and putting it on our loved ones, but it is those moments of, I've been doing a lot of work, I really could just use this, and when it's gifted to you, yes, that is taking our power back. It is speaking and opening up the throat chakra. It is allowing us to connect with the divine feminine, which is a soft quality and not the masculine, I must do this, I must. And also the archetypal idea of that feminine energy or masculine. Let's say you're a stay-at-home dad. I'm just using this one example, and your wife offers when you've been. So again, it's like, don't feel guilt, and it's not about that putting that, I hope they're not disappointed, or it's asking, are you really okay with that? Because I would love to do that, but I certainly don't want it to be a burden on you, and I would hope that you wouldn't offer if it wasn't something you really are feeling comfortable doing or have the time to do. So it's about communication, coming from the heart, speaking our truth in love, and they might say, oh, absolutely, I was looking forward to having the kids right now, or oh yeah, and then you can do this for me tomorrow, or whatever it is. You see where I'm going with this. And the guides are showing that this is creating a difference in our relationships. So then it creates this, wow, okay. And all of a sudden the dynamics change. Whereas a lot of other people before that had the weight of the world on their shoulders and didn't feel like they could relax for 10 minutes. Then if you don't take that opportunity, that's on you. Again, we're being invited to be masters and not to be the slave to our own insecurities, lack of being able to communicate, fears, etc., etc. So, being patient with our animals, being patient with our loved ones, because everything that we're going through, you're going through, I'm going through, we're going through together. So if someone, they're asking me to go back to the mushiness. Okay. If you're feeling really mushy and tired and sluggish, most likely your loved one is too. So it's, again, they might need a break. And so it's balancing that out and being a partner, service to others, as well as taking care of yourself and finding that balance. So being patient with everybody, because that's what this is all about. So that's the basic. We're gonna go a little bit more into the multidimensional now, and we're gonna go a little deeper and talk about magic. Not necessarily magic, the concept of what it is, but everyday magic. And one of the biggest messages that's coming through is this convergence and opening up our belief. So what's happening on an energetic layer, and I'm going to try to end this in the next 5 minutes, is that as we raise our consciousness, as we grow up, right, and yet take our inner child with us in this and work together with our inner child, we see things from a broader perspective. So for example, let's say we had a really poor relationship with, let's say we got into a fight with our best friend and we haven't spoken, and because of whatever happened. And that relationship, now we can see, you know what, I wasn't in a good place. They weren't in a good place. I'm just gonna go ahead and reach out and erase this and start over. Can we do that? And I'm seeing that as a relevant theme for a lot of people, because it is about moving on, cleansing that, purging that old energy like frog, right? Cleansing that, get rid of those cords of frustration, anger, whatever, and grow up, right? Literally up in our dimensions, our density, or lighter in density, right? All of that stuff is dense. Get rid of it. If they're unwilling because they haven't grown up, then we are the grown-ups. And that's okay. That's on them from a non-judgment place. Can we do that? So that's what I'm seeing a lot, again, in sessions. Some people, I talked about this. Oh, I don't think I posted the video yet, but I talked a lot about stubborn. So just letting that go, because that's old. It's old, it's dense, it's heavy. And again, if we're not listening to our intuition, I don't know if I mentioned this, I've done this video a few times about this, but if we don't use it, we lose it. So we've got to exercise these muscles, our mastery muscles, rather than the need to control. We're saying, you know what, I'm gonna just let that go and brush that off and come from the heart and recognize that I'm not that same person I was 6 months ago. And do everything we can to be the master and be that embodied master that we came here to be. The conduit, right? Holding the light, not the weight of the world, because that's not our responsibility. We're conduits. The weight has been lifted. We're letting that stuff go, and we're not playing those same games anymore because we're in a completely different field. So on a magical level, what they're showing me is this convergence of energies. So essentially, we're converging all of these timelines, all of these energies, our relationship with the sun and the earth, us as conduits, like we're the crystal conductors, right? Our relationship with the crystals inside of the earth, our relationship with other planets, our relationship with the moon, so to speak, and this is from a very multidimensional perspective, is changed completely. In addition to that, our relationship, so as we change, our relationship with everything changes. So the more we expand, ascend, let go, purge, and merge, the more we allow ourselves to converge with these frequencies. So it's like the sun is converging with the earth, and the planets are converging with us and the earth, and our whole relationship and dynamics has shifted, right? So everything is different. So if everything is different, then how can we still see things from the same perspective? We can't. It isn't possible. As we broaden our perspective and we allow this convergence to happen, we are rippling this energy out into everything, including past timelines. So what the guides were showing me are two different pictures. They're showing me an eraser, like what you would do on photos to erase wrinkles, right? They're saying that we're here, we still have those same building blocks, but we're literally erasing and blowing away that memory and writing over it from one perspective. And I know that's a really multi, so try not to wrap the brain around it. Just recognize, for example, I'm going to use that example of having an argument with a friend or family member. Now you see things, you're like, that person is not awake, or whatever, I wasn't awake when this happened. And now, because you see things from that perspective, it shifts your vibration entirely between you and that person. Think quantum entanglement, maybe a little, from one perspective. So now the chords, these energies, these frequencies, you've cut the density, you've cleared the energy, and now what's being felt is a pure harmonic. And so now that whole frequency and dynamic between the two of you is shifted. And that person may not even know why they are no longer mad at you anymore. But all of a sudden, one day they might not be. Again, let go of the attachment to that outcome and the need to control, are they, aren't they? And let go of needing to the expectations. Because now what's happened is that energy has shifted because you've awakened, you're sending them love, or you're choosing to clear all of these lines. You guys, this has to do with ancestral lines. This has to do with things we're shifting in our body. Again, it's like the weight of the world. Now it's the light of the world. We're lighting it up. And so it's opening up channels that others didn't have access to before. I'm going off on a tangent, I know. Very multidimensional. But having said that, what happens is when you shift that relationship, my battery's about to die, so I'm going to try to end this. When you shift that relationship or the energy around the relationship, you're actually collapsing a timeline. You're erasing certain things that had been created before are now gone. And the old energy is like, well, where did it go? Well, why? It can't be gone. Believe in magic. Believe in the magic eraser is what the message they keep saying. Believe in the magic marker or the dry erase marker. I wrote it on the board. It was there. It held a vibration. Now I've erased it and I'm writing over it, because we can do that from one perspective. And again, this is very multidimensional. And I'm not going to get into, there's those that are still stuck in that 3D that go, well, I know this happened. I can't let go of that because it happened. That is free choice. And then that is true for that person. And that person will not be able to erase and will not be able to tap into the magic that's being offered from being able to let go and rewrite. So that's one of the biggest messages that's coming through, is timelines are collapsing. So now, therefore, what happened in the past is actually different, because the energy that tied you to that circumstance, person, place, or thing is different. Does that make sense? It's really cool and exciting when you look at it from that perspective. Any of you guys that have done womb work, meaning you meditate and go back to the womb, which one of these days I will record that meditation and send it to those who I've done session work with, that I've said this is, I'll share it with everybody. But I've done this with certain people and said, you need to do some, and I've done it with them. We've gone back to the womb. We've shifted the energy around the dynamic between the mother and child, between the concept of birthing, on and on and on and on. You just shifted the timeline around that. You just went back into time and changed something, which changes everything. Does that make sense? So it's like nothing is the same, truly. And we're being invited, do you believe in magic, right? So that's coming through a lot. Pay attention to our rhythms is coming through a lot. Are you being limiting about this and not able to let this go? Then that's the sign that you're not listening to your intuition. You're out of flow. The woodpecker is knocking at your door saying, wake up, and help to pull you back into seeing what's really going on. Okay. The other message that came through about the convergence was, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the last movie from the, what are all those superheroes? Not Doctor Strange, the Avengers, the Endgame. Spoiler alert. There's a scene in the movie where all of the superheroes basically come back and fight at the end to take back what was stolen from them and to balance out. And it's literally, you think, how could they possibly win? And that is the biggest question. How can we possibly be winning? We are. Do you believe? Because it really is that power of belief. And I can get into quantum entanglement and all this because there's messages that have been coming through about that my linear 3D perspective doesn't understand, but my multi-quantum self does understand. And to recognize that there are bigger things at hand than we might see in this now moment from this squeezed in perspective. The more we expand, the more we grow up, the more we can see from a higher vantage point. Eagle eye perspective. Okay, so what they showed with these superheroes is they've now collected all of these powers and they tricked the bad guys, kind of, at the end of the movie, if I remember this correctly. And that's essentially what we've done. People think it's like all these star seeds. I talked about this in the dandelion video that I did. We are the dandelions.